Hey everyone, we're back. I'm just here to slip right into your Canvas messages for another virtual lesson. This is starting to become a little bit of a habit. Remember last time I told you that I was out of firewood, so we're going to have to still go with the Fireside Chat here a little bit, but we're going to go more virtual fireside. Ooh, so warm. Man, right? I won't even have to get up and add any firewood to it. So a little bit of a different environment, as you can see. Just going to move to a different part of the casa, as they say in Espanol. So I got looking this morning at our weather conditions. I thought, man, that's a beautiful map, right? Look at that use of color and that contrast, and it got me thinking about artwork. And then it dawned on me, we have one more ism that we have to cover, and that is Romanticism, the major art movement of the late 18th into the 19th century. And we got an exam coming up next week, and there's going to be some art on it, and we better get it covered. All right, so let's just sit down, get ready to put me on speed number 2 and fly through and have a little bit in this icy day out in Iowa. Just grab yourself your workbook, maybe your notebook, and let's get through some art. That sounds awesome, right? But I'm not feeling I'm in the right environment. I'm not in the right frame of mind to get this. So I gotta figure out how I can change this so we can really get into art. I wonder what I should do. There we go. That's a lot better. I'm starting to feel a little bit more like myself once again. So I'm in a good spot. Hopefully you have your workbooks out. Okay. We're going to flip those workbooks to... We're going to get rid of me. Why don't you take a look? You should have your workbooks open. Find key concept 3.61. You've got some notes in there from quite a while ago, a little bit. But this last of our isms, right? The ISM, the ideologies. This is the artistic, literary, and intellectual movement of the late 18th to mid 19th century. Let's take a look. After you've taken a few seconds to get that workbook out, that it states that Romanticism broke with neoclassical forms of artistic representation and with rationalism, placing more emphasis on intuition and emotion. We're going to hopefully drive that home throughout the course of this presentation. It really is a reactionary movement to some of the more classical, romantic, Baroque era. And then when we get into the intellectual and the literary component, you're going to really see a big pushback against the scientific revolution, a little bit of a clash against the age of the Enlightenment, and definitely some anti-industrial revolution as well. Taking a little closer look at these key concepts, I think this will kind of hopefully help us put that bigger picture together, or putting that puzzle back together a little bit. So when you take a look at the entire key concept of 3.6, where it states European ideas and cultures expressed a tension between objectivity and scientific realism on one hand and subjectivity and individual expression on the other, what we are seeing intellectually, artistically, is a transition from really our previous time periods, from the age of the age of the Renaissance, the age of scientific exploration, the scientific revolution, the age of enlightenment, where so much was based on, I will believe it if you can prove it to me mathematically and logically. We're seeing a little bit of backlash with these key concepts, right? So when you see this whole key concept put together, what we hope to get today is really a good understanding of key concepts A and B, this emphasis on Romanticism and how it breaks from it. We're going to see a lot and learn a lot of artistic names. We're going to get into some of the classical romantic composers. That's what we're going to end with. This is the age of the novel, as we will see. Some of the most influential writers are going to come out of that, and we're going to see how it fits in with some of the political isms that we have discussed, right? So that's what we're going to get today. As you got into a lot of this stuff on your notes this week, you'll hopefully see how that also fits together. So we're going to talk about the intellectual and the artistic aspect, but yet when you combine it with some of the new thoughts that are coming in philosophy, sociology, here's Charles Darwin and that rationale with the biological changes, all these new scientific discoveries, right? How does Marx's scientific socialism really provide a critique of capitalism and really proves to be a powerful ism, especially as we roll into World War I, right? Then the next major art movement you will see, you may have some notes on it already, but we'll come back to it after the Romantic art movement. We're going to see more of a pickup into more realism and an offshoot. So that will come a little bit later, but I just want to make sure that you had a pretty good understanding that this does fit the bigger picture. So we're going to get into more of the artwork as well. So just generally, the Romantic movement, it's a pretty long intellectual movement. It's going to begin in the 1780s. We're going to peak around the 1830s. But again, when you talk intellectual art movement, we can't just give concrete times. It began in April of 1780 and it ended in December of 1830, right? It's fluid. It's going to move back and forth throughout the time periods. But generally, we're talking at the end of the 18th century, early into the 19th century, right? Another key aspect of this movement is that it really does grow simultaneously across Europe. Germany, England, and France are going to lead the way, but as we will see, they're going to learn some Polish composers, some Czech composers, and so it really kind of emerges throughout the whole time period. And you can probably imagine why. Think of all the things that we have discussed throughout this time period. Communication is easier. Travel is getting easier, right? Every time somebody moves or visits a different place, they're bringing with them ideas. And information is just traveling at such a quicker pace that things are moving a little bit thing. And so I think that's why we're going to see this movement occur across Europe. Unlike the Renaissance, that was, we began it heavily in Italy, and then it slowly traveled north. Baroque tended to be centered in some countries and then traveled slowly but surely. But this one is going to grow simultaneously. Some more just general concepts that you should be aware of. Again, there is a sense of a shared vision amongst the Romantics, right? It probably is not a coincidence that the Romantic art movement comes at the same time the French Revolution, right? People reacting very emotionally to the problems that were occurring across France. With the rise of liberalism and that emphasis on individual freedom and spontaneity, you're going to see that be a common theme, a shared vision among the Romantics, right? And one of the big ones that we will talk about, the kind of like the intellectual pushback against industrialization. People are freaking out a little bit that we're becoming too modern of a world, and machines are making us a little bit more dehumanized. I would love to have a Romantic critic be alive today and take a look at what technology is doing to us. The fact that I'm not looking you in the eyes right now and we're conducting this lesson thanks to technology, they might see a little irony in that. There's going to be some political implications of this. This is why it's a pretty powerful ism. It's going to reflect everything that's happening during the time period. the things that we have just covered over the last couple weeks, from the revolutions of 1848, right? Major political events, the unification of Italy, the unification of Germany, the new intellectual developments, what I was just talking about, Charles Darwin, all the new emphasis on sociology and psychology, right? It's gonna have its fingers in everything. Okay. Key point that I want you to notice is right here, right? We have talked a little bit about this a little bit earlier, but remember when we talked about how nationalism could find its way? You could be a liberal nationalist or you could be a conservative nationalist. Well, the same thing is going to apply to the Romantics. Romanticism is going to find a way to support all of the other isms that we have addressed in this unit. Okay, so just like all of our other art movements that we have done, I think it's important to know just some key characteristics. We are going to cover 10. This is going to take a while. I'm not going to beat around the bush a little bit. Some of the pieces of art that we are going to see are just fascinating, and so I've got lots of stories for all of them. If you get completely bored with my stories, the best part about being in your own comfort of your home and not in class, you can stop, right? You want to just fast forward and move on. You're going to see a slide like this every so often, and you're going to see the characteristics. Maybe you just want to fast forward through YouTube and get those characteristics down and some of the general criteria or descriptions of these characteristics, right? If you're really into it and you see a slide stuck on a painting, you might be, man, he's really going on and on about that painting, right? You can fast forward it through it. That's the benefit of you being at home. So just like anything, just like before, right? On your header, if you're taking notes on it, or if you're, this PowerPoint will be on Canvas, and so you can just kind of reference that if you prefer that way as well, right? But if I was taking notes, then obviously my header would be characteristics of Romanticism. I'm going to put the characteristic that is there. The first one that we are going to talk about, Romantic, especially in the visual arts, it's all about the emotions, passion. We're going to focus on some of the irrationality, see if that can come out on a visual aspect. I'll have some general characteristics for you as well, right? In this first characteristics, hopefully you're going to pick out that human beings are going to be portrayed as a little bit more complex, emotional, and very often only sometimes rational. Again, that's that pushback against the scientific revolution in the Age of Enlightenment, where it became the intellectual thing that everything should be operating in a logical manner, right? The artist himself, now we've seen this characteristic come up in some of our earlier artwork as well, but the Romantic artist is very much engaged and enraged, and we hope to see that come out in the artwork. Oftentimes, especially in some of these early key pictures that we're going to see, the artist wants to separate himself from society. Caspar David Friedrich is going to be the greatest example of that, and those are some of the early ones that we will see. When we get into some more of the nationalist characteristics that come out, the artist will use their venue, use their media to criticize society, right? To promote the revolutions of the time period. And like any good art movement, most artists think that they're geniuses as well. All right, first key artist that I think you should know. Just like we are in class, I will let you know an artist to write down, right? So remember what we've done. You've got the key characteristic, you've got a little bit of description, and you might put for each of the description some of the key artists. You're going to see these names come back and forth quite a bit. This one I think is a great place to start. Caspar David Friedrich really wants to captivate the idea of encountering nature by himself in solitude, right? He paints into some far out areas. Look at this one, right? He's up in the mountains. You can't get farther away from society than being up in the mountains. One of the major disadvantages of conducting a lecture like this is I'm going to miss out hearing you pick up on things. I'm missing hearing you and your explanations of what you're seeing. You know, one of the key questions that I would ask yourself that, hey, don't be crazy, answer it out loud right now as if you were responding to me. What do you think the significance of this painting that we don't see his face, right? We're giving it to you from the back as he's looking out into this vast wilderness, right? This wild up in the mountains, above the fog, as it says. We can't see his face. We don't know what he's contemplating, right? Frederick loves to kind of do things like that, right? Is he wowed and mystified by what he is seeing? Is he distraught? Is he perhaps thinking about taking that step off of that cliff, all right? Or is he just mesmerized and contemplating the beauty that he is seeing, right? That's the best part about art. We don't know, right? And that romantic aspect of it is there is no rational explanation on why he's up here. I mean, we could break it down, or like we could say, well, you know, maybe he wanted to get from point A to point B, and this is the only place that he had to go. But we don't know, right? That's the beauty of this, right? That's that irrationality. We'll talk later about the power of nature as a key characteristic, and Friedrich does that as well. I'm sure I'm completely slaughtering his name. So the nice thing about artwork, sometimes you can work to duplicate it. Here was my great attempt at Glacier National Park when I was indeed at about 11,000 feet above the clouds. Could have probably got myself way out to there, but yeah, that is a long walk. And so, I don't know, that was pretty good. I just did this one from memory. I think I nailed it. Pretty good, right? Now, the best thing about this, I can tell you what I was contemplating. I was contemplating, oh my God, this is a long walk. And I could really probably lose some weight if I'm going to continue to walk. Oh, I was contemplating the beauty of nature. Honestly, I really was. You can't go to Glacier National Park without contemplating the beauty of nature. Okay, second key characteristic. We're going to talk to this one about the rugged individual. Remember back from our romantic characteristics, individualism was a key aspect of Romanticism. That characteristic is going to come back a little bit in this one as well. I think you can see this in that Friedrich painting that we were just looking at a little bit earlier. The individual in this one, or in this characteristic, what the artist is trying to get portrayed is that, hey, individuals, human beings, we have unique, endless potential. But then they're going to kind of get a little bit full of themselves, right? Like they are going to use their art as the true philosophy. Self-realization, your worth as a human being can be revealed to you through art, right? All right, so here's another Friedrich. No new name to learn. But again, look at common Friedrich. Here is that individual. But once again, we just see his back, right? We don't see his face. We see that nature here, right? So you can get really philosophical with this painting if you want it, right? What's he thinking? Okay, how could this painting be a backlash against what we are dealing with in society at the beginning of the 19th century, right? Why is there a fence, right? What is this fence enclosing? Notice the field, right? Half harvested. Right now we look at this field, it looks like a beautiful countryside, right? But 1835, what probably just passed to harvest this field wasn't done by hand. I mean, it might have been, but more than likely in 1835, probably a mechanical harvester came back, right? Notice we're not putting that machine in the picture, but you see some rows and remnants of a harvest, right? Maybe he's contemplating leaving the countryside. Maybe this is him right before he walked up into those mountains, right? We don't know. Fairly philosophical. All right. Here's another classic Caspar David Friedrich. You see the beautiful countryside. Again, it's Friedrich. I'm removing myself from society. I'm going to the middle of nowhere, so to speak, right? When you stare at this picture from the far side, all right, Friedrich, where's your individual? Can you find him? Let's make it come in a little bit closer. There he is, leaning against that tree. That pose again, that philosophical man caught in thought. Maybe he's just really bored. What profession is he? He's a shepherd. He's out with his sheep. Maybe he's contemplating, is this what life really has to offer? Is there something else out there? Maybe this is as great as life can get. That looks pretty great to me. Beautiful countryside. Sheep not talking back to you. Not on their phones. Oh, wait. There, I'm getting on my tirade again. All right, characteristic number 3. This one's fun, right? I really enjoy this one. What we're focusing on here in this characteristic, and we're going to see in these paintings, is the power of Mother Nature, right? It's really this is the backlash against the Industrial Revolution, right? Throughout all of our scientific discoveries and our new machines, man has been manipulating Mother Nature. We just made the Suez Canal. We're going to get ready to dig a Panama Canal, right? We are taking railroads and putting them all across the land. Here's a mountain. Let's blow it up. Let's put this railroad through the mountain. Right? And in that aspect of dehumanization, or the concern about dehumanization, a lot of romantic artists are going to come back and emphasize, despite your efforts, Mother Nature cannot be tamed. And so some of the pictures that we are going to see here are going to show the awesome, the horrifying aspects of nature. Mother Nature doesn't care about your railroad, right? An earthquake can take that out left and right. Mother Nature is not going to care about your ships, right? We can build up a storm in the oceans and spit it right back where it came from. Some of the things that we will see is going to emphasize the emotion of Christianity. We're not, religion hasn't been a huge part of our course since the 30 Years' War, but people are still religious, and we're going to see images of Christianity and a little bit even more spiritual aspect. We'll see that in a characteristic that'll come up a little bit later. All right, here's a name. I'm not necessarily real concerned about you understanding or who this artist is. In this one, I'm more concerned that you see the image for what's happening, right? Here's the title, An Avalanche in the Alps. Remember, power of nature. Notice what's happening in here, right? Use your knowledge of art appreciation. You should pick up on some things. Where do your eyes go, right? More than likely, your eyes come right to the light. That's that artist doing that. That's the avalanche. See that snow, okay? And then once you realize that, your eyes kind of wander down here and, oh, look at these humans. They're so small. They're rather insignificant. If you've ever been to the Alps, or if you've ever been to the mountains, you quickly feel small as a human being once you realize the grandness that are the mountains. And the Alps are some of the most massive mountains in the world, right? And so here's man. He thought, we can take these Alps, we can make a path, right? We can make the Alps crossable, navigable, and Mother Nature at any given moment can say, nah, your path is gone, right? Notice the horror and the distraughtness that are in the humans. That's a great one to show the power and fury of nature. Here's another Andreas Achenbach. Again, don't worry about this artist. Notice how it fits the characteristics, right? You got a little bit of everything going on with nature in this painting, right? Where do our eyes go again? Our vanishing point takes us up to here. I mean, that's beautiful. Could be a sunrise, could be a sunset, but it's beautiful, peaceful Mother Nature. But again, let your eyes gander over a storm, all right? A gathering storm. It's coming. It's whipping up the ocean. Once again, here's small, insignificant man with the audacity to think that I can get in a boat and I can travel on your seas. At any given point, Mother Nature can say, nah, why don't you just get right back on there? What I said before, I love this one because it just seems to me that the ocean is just spitting you back onto the land, okay? Power of nature. This one brings in that Christianity, or brings in that spirituality, right? Francis Danby's The Deluge. Here is a flooding river. Okay, there's so much going on in here. I think this one, you definitely see the power of Mother Nature. Okay, again, as you examine this painting a little bit more, first thing I notice is this angel, right? That's kind of unique. You don't necessarily see those once in a while, but the Romantics don't care, right? They'll add a little spirituality. They'll add a little mysticism to it a little bit. But you do see a reality of a situation once you notice that there are humans caught in this flood and they're grasping on for dear life. They're just, they're at Mother Nature's mercy, right? What's happening back here? Is there a little bit of fire there? Could be the demon. Who knows? Again, if we're in class, it's always kind of fun because you get some interesting theories especially from the peanut gallery in the back, right? But that's good. That's what art is all about. Your own personal interpretations. I don't know if this one necessarily shows the power of Mother Nature. I just really like it, right? It seems Halloweenish to me. We're going to get some great kind of spooky ones a little bit. I think I like this because my artistic ability, about the only thing I can draw is a dead tree. So maybe I like that one a little bit more. Tree of crows. Everybody likes crows. Here's another Caspar David Friedrich, right? The Wreck of the Hope, which is a ship in a sea of ice. This one, again, it takes a little examination. Can you find the ship? There's the back end. If I was a sailor, I probably should know if that's the bow or the stern. It's one of those two, right? Here's the other part. Here's man. Once again, he thought he could navigate the northern waters of Europe. And the icebergs and the ice, they say no, right? Not only are we going to freeze you in place, but now we'll drive our ice straight through your ship, right? Man, you are nothing compared to the power of Mother Nature. This one, I really kind of enjoy this one. Again, just shows the man, or you're a little bit more visible in this one. But again, boy, if this one just doesn't scream the power of Mother Nature, we're gonna shipwreck you as well, right? Here is a name that I want you to know, an artist, Théodore Géricault. Here he is a French artist, and what he is doing in this painting, and this one I'm going to take a little bit along, so if you get a little bit bored, you can fast forward till we get to the next characteristic. But this painting's telling a pretty ruthless story. The Medusa was a French frigate where in the summer of 1816 was wrecked off the coast of Africa. It was carrying soldiers and settlers to the colony of Senegal. So we're kind of dipping into a little bit of imperialism in here, right? But when you really study the history of what happened on the Medusa, Géricault's making a political story with this painting, right? It really slams the political corruptness of the day, because on the Medusa, the actual real ship, the captain was a complete idiot. He was given his title simply through political persuasion, right? He had really no business being a captain of a ocean-going vessel, right? And so when they got into trouble, he had no idea what to do, and his incompetence probably led to the travesty that is the Medusa. There were just a very few lifeboats, and so one of the first things that the captain did is he took one of the lifeboats, right? What's the number one rule in being a sea captain? The captain goes down with the ship, right? But this guy was like, man, I was only in this for the money, so he's out. And him and his crew, they took most of the lifeboats, and so most of the settlers, right, the common people, were left to fend for themselves. So it's kind of a really a tragic story, and Géricault's bringing it out to him, right? He has this great saying about this painting. He's like, neither poetry nor painting can ever do justice to the horror and anguish of the men on the raft, right? To truly tell this story, Géricault did something pretty unique in his studio in France. He reconstructs this raft that the survivors quickly put together. He used wax bodies to make sure and put them in the position that he wanted to do. And so he really kind of created as the most realistic story as possible, right? There's a lot going on in this painting that I just kind of want to point out to you a little bit, right? What do you notice? Okay, do you see the power and fury of nature, right? Notice the waves in the background. Notice how the makeshift sail is whipping. What's going on here, right? You got a fairly famous pose, right? Borderline Pieta pose here, and then you got this ultimate look of contemplation, right? What do you think he could be contemplating? Is he really distraught about the death of this person? You're stuck on a raft in the middle of the ocean, no provisions. What might you be contemplating? Could be a little cannibalism, right? This image right here, hatchet or an axe, right? The survivors of the Medusa did indeed have to turn to some cannibalism. You'll see the remnants right there. That's really hard to see, but that's the uniform. That's a sailor's uniform. That's almost making an instant where, you know, when you're on Survivor, your uniform, your so-called rank, it means nothing. Then you should notice way off here in the horizon, that's the rescue boat. And so you notice the kind of the panic in it. You notice the triangles, right? A little romantic emphasis. But this, especially this pyramid here, as the people are pushing themselves up, hoping to get the attention of that boat so they can be rescued, right? So you kind of see the hope, the desperation on their faces and their body language. This group was indeed rescued, and they were on this raft for 13 days. There was about 149 on the shift. A group of them made, there was probably a couple rafts that they tried to construct. They were adrift for 13 days, and only 15 will survive the horrendous circumstances, and especially those instances of cannibalism, and many resort to insanity, as you can imagine. When they are rescued, it's pretty even sadder that 5 of the 13 die very shortly after being rescued. So, cool story, right? Artwork can tell a story, right? And the artist Géricault wanted this story being told, right? He wanted to people to recognize not only the power of nature, but when political corruptness actually costs people's lives. Okay, how you doing? Right? Doing pretty well. Normally, as you could see, we would probably be getting ready for a break, right? Maybe I will, in fact, let's do one more characteristic and then we'll take a break. We'll cut this video. We'll split this video into 2 spots. But let's get through the new technology is dehumanizing. Okay, that's a key characteristic. I'm hoping that from the things that I have said earlier, this one can go without explanation. One of the key artists that I do want you to know, though, is Joseph Mallord William Turner. We'll see him referred to as JMW Turner. He is a very famous romantic poet that comes out. Here is one of his famous paintings, Rain, Steam, and Speed. Sorry, right? You got a lot going on in here, okay? Here is the new modern railroad. Notice how it's portrayed. A little bit darker, a little bit dirty, right? Modern technology disrupting the countryside. Let your eyes come over here to the left, right? Here's almost the old Europe, the more classical bridge, probably more of a pedestrian bridge, maybe can handle a horse and a wagon, certainly can't carry the weight of a train. Now you need a new, dirty, modern bridge, right? Notice how the simple fishermen, how their life is being disrupted by the noise and the dirtiness, the pollution of the train, right? JMW Turner, when you first look at the painting from afar, you're like, okay, I mean, that's pretty good. But you start examining it, you will really see the expertise all the way down to seeing the people in the passenger train. Some of our earlier passenger trains were open cars. The image of the engine, right? Kind of looks a little bit like a bottle, kind of looks a little less than, definitely less than human, right? Almost like, I don't know, not really monster-like, but kind of disrupting things, right? Here is this one. I love this one because there's so much symbolism going on in this picture. JMW Turner painted this picture when he was 64, towards the end of his career. And the image that you're seeing here, look what's happening. You got a modern tugboat here pulling in one of the old naval ships of Great Britain, right? This used to be how we fought wars. Here is the Fighting Tumer, one of the classic British battleships, the sail ships. But it's no longer needed because we're turning to steamships. So we're bringing the old boy back into port. When you know a little bit about JMW Turner, this was one of the very last paintings that he painted. When this one was displayed, he kind of disappears from society. So maybe in his own special artistic way, he was putting himself to rest, right? Maybe he felt like he was one of the old artists going to pasture, so to speak, right? Here's another classic JMW Turner. See the power of nature, but you also got some political statements going on here. 1842, transatlantic slave trade is now abolished, so that means that this slave ship is a part of the black market, right? Showing the horrors that humans are still being exploitive. How do I know it's a slave ship? All right, number one, he told us, right? But then number two, when you look closely, you can see the shackles. On this ship, very similar to the story of the Amadeus, this ship thought they were going to be caught, and so they dumped their evidence. What does that mean? They dumped the human beings into the sea to be overtaken by the animals in the sea, right? So you see the shackles and you see the fish devouring them. Okay, so that's about halfway through the key characteristics. I think it's a good place to stop. I could use another little cup of joe. So let's take a little break. I'll cut that one. We'll get that one uploaded and then we'll come back for day number 2